Maine is the whitest state in the United States. I checked it again. It beats Vermont by 0.1%. And if you do a polling of refugees in refugee camps in Africa and Middle East and wonder which state in the United States would you like to come to, Maine comes as number one. And I don't know what that is, but it's a huge tribute to the state. This is the only thing about refugees I'm going to say all morning, because you have heard better experts on refugees talk about refugees all the time. I'm going to speak to what Bill Clinton would like to call this business of immigration debate. Why is it that immigration debate that used to be in the margins of our domestic policy has become the center stage of our domestic policy? Why is it that something that should be confined to a few social workers and immigration lawyers in the basement of churches has now become the main issue in our politics? Why is it that Donald Trump essentially launched his campaign, and you could say sustained and won his campaign on immigration of his presidency on the basis of immigration? Why is it that in the last 5 straight years, every single state in this country has introduced and passed bills dealing with immigration? Why is it that every year Supreme Court issues 2 or 3 major decisions on immigration? Essentially, sort of why has immigration become the third rail of American politics? This is one of those issues where it's obviously a combustible combination of facts, policy, and politics. You would probably tell me that's probably true for everything that we know of, but since I know nothing about gun control or drug addiction policy in Maine, I'll just stick to immigration. Let me start with a dash of history. Because if we don't, history is the only thing we can learn anything from. We are a nation of immigrants, but we have always been ambivalent about immigration. People will tell you that George Washington himself said that the country did not need any more immigrants except for a few talented carpenters. Ben Franklin, one of the most erudite founding fathers, warned the country in 1755 that this was going to be Germanizing of America if we let more Germans in, because he thought the Germans did not share the liberal political tradition of America. No offense to Jared if he's in the audience. In 1860s, the Know Nothing Party was launched against Irish and the Catholics. I recently checked, the Know Nothing Party got more votes than Donald Trump got in his primary election. And pardon the pun about the Know Nothing, but till 1875, despite all the ambivalence, we had no federal law in this country to control immigration. There were some state laws which were turned down by the Supreme Court, no federal law to control immigration. It was only in 1875 Congress said that we would not welcome certain people, not limits. We didn't like paupers, we didn't like prostitutes, we didn't like people who were criminals, we didn't like people who would become criminal charges, or people who would bring tuberculosis. Qualitative limits, as I call them. In the same spirit of qualitative limits, for the first time in 1882, we established the Chinese Exclusion Act, talking about bans. We forbid any new Chinese from coming after they had built our railway system across the nation. We extended that to all of Asia a few years later, talking about bans. We did this a long time ago. But it was only in the last decade of the 19th century and the first decade of the 20th century that the country got anxious about immigration. And this was mostly about Southern and Eastern Europeans. This is about Jews, Italians,